You need to start your day in the woods or on your place with like just being thankful because we're surrounded by miracles everywhere.
I probably wouldn't want to admit how many times I have been sitting in a deer stand. I can't believe I left that tree, and why is that?
Right.
No, that one needs to be taken out.
Yeah.
And more times than I would want to admit, crawled down out of the stand,
Oh, I
midway
do.
through a hunt, went and got the chainsaw. I got to fix this right now. I can't stand the way this looks any longer.
Never lose your sense of wonderment. It's all downhill and fun from there. You're just working the puzzle. But if you don't do that, you're missing the biggest point about all this stuff.
Here at Mossy Oak, one of our core philosophies is about time. We believe time will always be our most valuable asset, and one of our greatest blessings in life is the time we get to spend in nature. Now, it's not just our responsibility, it's our privilege to protect and nourish the wildlife and resources that make it all possible. A selfless commitment to give back more than you receive and leave things better for the future. That's what it means to be a gamekeeper. Join us each week as we focus on the wildlife we all love and explore the practices and the people who are making a difference in our quest to become a better gamekeeper. The Gamekeepers of Mossy Oak is presented by Tractor Supply Company for life out here and LS Tractor. Start blue, stay blue.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, here we are once again, West Point, Mississippi, home of Mossy Oak brand camo, the Gamekeeper Studio. Today, we've got a really interesting guest. We've got Dr. Craig Harper.
All right.
You know, we've been around wildlife management for, I'm going to say, close to 30 years.
Yeah.
And your name, we've watched you from afar.
You know, look at Bobby. He doesn't look like a stalker at first glance. So.
The privilege is mine. I am very happy to be here with you.
A few weeks ago, when Marcus was here, he dropped the bomb. You had some cutting-edge data that showed that perhaps mowing clover was not as beneficial as people once thought it was.
I question if anything draws as much emotion out of people when you tell them that, one, you don't need to mow your perennial forage plots as often as they might think. Not to say you shouldn't ever mow them, because you should. And number two, you shouldn't mow your old fields, early successional areas to maintain succession, because you don't get the best result out of that for a vast majority of species that you would manage for. That right there draws, just raw emotion out of people, and I really don't understand why that is.
It's kind of a positive. I believe we've evolved as outdoorsmen, and especially hunters and stuff, and more as a gamekeeper, people look forward to spending time on their place and working on it and getting on that tractor than they do actually hunting. And to take away their bush hogging is like a pastime. So I get that, but the point of it is, if you just want to manicure it and make it look great, sure. But, we can learn from him and what's best for your place.
We've been doing this now easily for 20 years. If you spray your plots in the spring to control incoming warm season weeds, and if you spray your plots in late summer, fall to control incoming cool season weeds, you find that you don't have to mow your clovers as often to maintain them. And so generally mow our clovers once a year in August, September. Of course, there will be some escapes. Let that structure develop. That little bit of structure is not inhibiting or overly competing with the clover growth. If you have not sprayed at all, then yes, you may have to mow frequently to keep the weeds knocked back. But there's a key phrase. That regular mowing is not getting rid of the weeds.
No.
It's making them shorter. Our data from cameras clearly show that we get more visitation and use out of those plots that are unmowed through the summer than mowed plots. If it were different, I would be sitting here saying, guys, you ought to mow your clover plots, 4 or 5 times a summer.
Because it's your job to do that.
Yeah,
That's right.
I don't care. I don't care how many times you mow your clovers.
The Gamekeepers of Mossy Oak is presented by Mossy Oak brand camo. native nurseries, and biologic. Mossy Oak's Gamekeeper Kennels and Gamekeeper Butchery. Mossy Oak Companions. Mossy Oak Fishing. Mossy Oak Properties. LS Tractors. The Furminator. Spartan Cameras. Nosler Bullets. Loophole Optics. Moultrie Feeders. Duke Traps. Gamekeepers Magazine and Gamekeepers Fieldwear. Also, Biologic BCP deer feed available at Tractor Supply. Hey, to find your favorite place, be sure to talk to the land experts at Mossy Oak Properties. They are the most trusted and proven network for buying or selling rural land in the country, truly serving as America's land specialist. So this is kind of the center of activity for us in deer season, at least. It's called the Mississippi Field. It's actually almost 20 acres. It's a really big field. A couple of years ago, I started managing towards getting a good stand of the non-typical clover, and it worked like magic. You know, I've got some radish and some cereal grains that's been there with the clover, but it provided clover for 3 years in a row, 365 days a year. The quality of the deer, the number of deer, I mean, deer just come from all over this countryside. So it's been unbelievable. The sad thing is I got to start over because the armyworms just out of nowhere wiped it out this summer. I would think really hard about trying to establish this clover or something like it in your biggest field. You know, maybe it's a little more to establish, but good gracious, what you get in subsequent years if you do it right.
April, May, and June are the primary months. By early July, about 50% of the antler growth is done.
Right.
Most people will plant their warm season plots in May or even early June. Look at how much of the antler production period you've missed, whereas these perennial clovers are pumping out the optimum nutrition needed for antler production, needed for does to help them with milk production during the very time that they need it most. A lot of people don't think about the critical need of peak nutrition availability during that April to June time period, and they're thinking more about October, November when they're hunting oak.
The main objective here is to get a good stand of clover. Of course, clover is slow to come on in the winter and fall, so we need something for deer right away. I'm using green patch, and I've added a little bit of the deer radish. What I may do, depending on moisture, I may come over the top of this later in the winter and top seed another 3-4 pounds an acre of the non-typical, because my main thing besides feeding deer this winter is to end up with a really good stand of the clover going into next year. I've got some places now going on 5 years. It's by far the best investment I've ever made in, you know, taking care of my deer. You know, it's 430 acres here. About half was in open fields and half in, you know, hardwoods. We planted about maybe 80 or 100 acres of it in pines. We plant about 35 or 40 acres in something for wildlife. Or we let it go for, you know, some nesting areas. You know, we'll let it go for a couple of years and then kind of let it start over. So it's kind of a recurring early successional habitat
Just say a landowner has a lot of ground that's open. You wouldn't say to plant clover in every opening. How much of it would be clover, and what would you do with the rest of it?
First off is look at the aerial photo. Let's see what we have. And then I'm evaluating what are the objectives of the landowner. The vast majority of people in the eastern United States who are managing their property for wildlife is for deer and turkeys. I want to see good fawning cover distributed around, which also is going to provide either good brooding cover or good nesting cover, which isn't necessarily the same, but I would rather have more structure out there, more overhead plant cover to help her hide her nest and hide herself.
You know, just on the other side of those trees is about a 15, 18 acre field that I haven't done anything to in a couple of years. And so it's grown up, it's started getting a few little scrubby trees in it. It's that early successional. It's probably not over this tall in most of it or less, but deer are bedding in it like crazy. I'm not doing them any good without not planting as much food as I can for them. So this particular field is gonna be our top priority for all this property in this area. So one little small thing when I'm adding clover and I blended it good, the clover seed I always tend to sink to the bottom a little bit more. So when right before I start, I just dust the top. I don't know how much of a difference it makes to make sure there's some on the last little bit. I'll leave that just sitting on top and it'll work its way down some anyway. All right, we're ready to roll. Once it gets a root, terminal bud of clover's underground, they can't get it, so it'll keep coming back. You know, that's kind of what makes clover made for grazing. They eat one, 3 come back, they eat those 3, and there's 9, you know, and it spreads. But it has to be established or they'll pull it up by the root when they eat it. The old mean green, I think that's gonna be the ticket for us this year. And honestly, more economical, way more so compared to what's going on with granular fertilizer right now. For the purposes of deer season, I think we'll have probably more nutritious, but for sure tastier like plants to attract deer with the mean green. Come see me about February and I'll tell you. Hey, be sure to stay connected with us on both Facebook and Instagram at Mossy Oak Gamekeepers. Be sure to listen to both our podcasts, The Gamekeepers of Mossy Oak and Fistful of Dirt, brought to you by Mossy Oak Properties. Over years and years of doing this, you know, planting peas and beans and other really great legumes that can really, you know, as you see, some of the biggest deer in this country will erupt at soybean, you know, areas.
Absolutely.
Because that is a phenomenal forage variety.
And you're getting all that tonnage at the time when your perennials are really waning in late summer with all the dry periods. So I mean, all of this works together, and placing it appropriately and in the appropriate amounts on your property is what really needs to be done in the planning process.
So, but if you wait until that burst of nutrition for when your beans come up, you've missed a pretty critical time for them too.
That's exactly right.
And if they've already been depleted before they get to the beans, they're not going to put on and express.
They're not going to catch up what they missed for the 3 critical months.
There's such a huge benefit to having something going on 365.
Yeah.
I mean, we just got settled, really ain't even fully settled. And I caught movement at the end of this bean patch. I don't know, 175 yards or so down there. Dang good buck walking away from us down in that timber.
Yeah, I saw him. He looked like several deer.
He's walking to the right now.
Oh, I see.
Oh, it's 2 bucks. 3 bucks. 4. Holy moly, the one on the left is freaking huge. Man, oh man. Well, we got 4 hours till dark. And if that don't excite you, about what good walk out and feed these beans, unbelievable. 130 or 40 yards coming out of that timber. About that fence line right there. Oh yeah, it's a shooter. That's a big one. I'm ranging just to make sure. Let's kill him. Yeah. Shoot face. Kill him. Ready? Boom. He's down. He is down. Goodness gracious alive. This is just a big Iowa bruiser 9-point right here, y'all. Thank you so much to Mossy Oak for letting me and others do this. And just a big mega buck, y'all. An absolute giant, southeast Iowa. What an incredible hunt.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Gamekeeper's Fieldwear. Discover our premium apparel at select sporting goods retailers or online at gamekeepersfieldwear.com. Subscribe to our Gamekeepers magazine or grab a copy at Bass Pro Shops, Tractor Supply, and Walmart.
To learn more, check out the Gamekeeper Podcast Library and specifically these episodes. Subscribe and you won't miss an episode. Did you know that we raise money that goes directly to wildlife research? You can support these projects by purchasing a Mossy Oak wild turkey stand. With this simple act, you'll demonstrate your dedication to conservation and directly contribute to ongoing wildlife research. Learn more at mossyoak.com.
You know, for me, historically, has been you clip to help control those weeds, but then you clip because this fresh new growth is more attractive. I think maybe this study probably dispels that. And I think I heard y'all talking about biomass. There's actually more tonnage of food left if you don't clip it.
Let's say, for example, you clip the stems where the young leaves are that have just emerged. Commonly, the crude protein content, for example, will be 25 to 30%, whereas the leaves down here near the bottom, they might be 16 to 18, which still is good. But
not as good.
It's much less. And that's why deer are called concentrate selectors. They're concentrating their foraging on select plants and select plant parts that are most highly digestible. When you mow your plots, what you're doing is lowering the biomass of the forage that's available. And I am not talking about total biomass. We've got graphs where we show the biomass of unmowed clover plots, and then we're mowing at 4-week intervals. Week 1, week 2, week 3. Well, the mowed sections never catch up in biomass to the unmowed sections, and in the unmowed sections, the biomass is only represented by the leaves that the deer eat, not the whole plant or the stems.
Like today, we looked at that. There's no need to clip anything. The deer are clipping it, and it was like a 20-acre field, and they are mauling it. So you don't need anything to stimulate more growth or to clip anything.
Regardless of whether we're planting annual clovers or perennial clovers, we always will plan to have a grass selective herbicide application to control grasses coming in. But with the perennial plots, our traditional management has become over the years, and we've been doing this at least 20 years, we plan to spray late summer, early fall to control incoming cool season weeds, whether that be broadleaf or grass, and we plan to spray in spring to control incoming warm season weeds. And then on these perennial plots, we typically will mow them once per year, usually in late summer. You're simply transitioning your time and effort in a particular practice to another. So instead of mowing to keep this set back, you're putting a different implement on, your sprayer, and you're spot spraying the undesirable plants instead of mowing the whole thing. That way, your desirable plants are left. They are spreading and increasing naturally in all of the dead spots where you have sprayed the undesirable plants. At the same time, the seed bank is germinating in those dead spots. And so what you see then is this heterogeneous cover. You've got a lot of diversity of plant species and structure then in the field. You begin to learn, wow, I have lots of options that I can steer this plant community in different ways to meet my objectives. And you might do each of those a little differently if you're looking for better brooding cover, or if you're looking for the best nesting cover, or fawning cover, or deer forage plants.
Is there a significant difference between the nutritional value of annual and perennial clovers?
Before the annual clovers go to flower, their nutritional value is going to be pretty consistent with that of the perennial forages. And you're typically looking anywhere from crude protein values of like 23 to 30, 33 maybe,
Wow.
somewhere in there. You got calcium levels that are easily 1 to 3% when the maximum amount by deer is 0.5%. Phosphorus levels that are 0.3 to 0.5%. The most a growing buck is going to use is 0.1%. And that's ditto with these naturally occurring forbs also. Crude protein, calcium, phosphorus, potassium values, they are way in excess a deer needs for maximum growth.
Sounds like we need to throw those mineral licks away and plant more clover.
If Toxie was walk out there and bring in a watermelon and bust it open, first thing I'd do, where's the
Where's
salt
the
at?
salt?
Because
That's
I
right.
think it
That's right.
tastes good, you know.
That's right.
And deer do the same, but you're not likely to see any effect in terms of antler growth, fawn survival, weights per sex or age class, or any of that with mineral licks.
People will listen to his advice more now when diesel is $5 and $6 a
Yeah,
gallon.
that's a
So, you know,
motivator.
because that's a big cost savings.
Is there anything we forgot that we didn't mention about clover maintenance?
Number one, we mow our perennial forage plots. A lot of people say, "Oh, he said never to mow my plots." No, that's not what we said. We're saying that with proper management that includes some herbicide applications, you don't have to mow it as often. So don't leave with the wrong message.